I'm Mike Papantonio, and this is America's Lawyer, where we dig in behind the headlines to give you the details and information that corporate media won't give you because their advertisers don't let them. As always, I've got Farron Cousins with me, the progressive voice. Honest to God, one of the best progressive voices in the business. The stories, they're big mix today. Let's start off with talking about the Bezos story. You know, we last week or 2 weeks ago, we did, our headline was Corporate America basically comes groveling to Trump. I don't remember the exact words that were used, but they're groveling. They're going down to Mar-a-Lago, flying in. There's more jets flying into to South Florida right now than ever. Going down to kiss his ring and say, yeah, we're really sorry about what we did. I know we gave $20 million to your opposition. I know we were out there calling you a Nazi and a freak and every other thing, but we're here to make nice now because they're terrified of this guy. Bezos is no different. Go ahead.
Right, and Bezos may be one of the most dangerous because not only is Amazon a top military contractor, a top retailer, but also he owns the Washington Post. So Bezos obviously has a lot of kissing up to do because you've got Trump who says maybe we'll go after the media. So Bezos says, well, hold up. We actually love you over at the Washington Post. He did an interview a couple days after we, talked about him being the next to go grovel, and he did it exactly like we said. He did it.
It was pathetic.
It really was.
It was pathetic. It was, all that stuff you read, we didn't mean it. It was every week. I'm talking about during his first presidency, second, during the election, it was every week. You're a Nazi, Hitler, you're fascist. They love this word, existential. If I have to read existential threat, the term existential everything now. The Washington Post is crazy with the term. It's like MSNBC. But he was an existential threat to democracy. It was constant. And now do you think this is this kind of character? Is this the personality that says, oh, yeah, well, no problem.
Well,
don't
look,
worry
there were a lot of articles and op-eds in the Washington Post normalizing, some of Trump's most erratic behavior, a lot of conservative voices in there too. And so when Bezos did this interview and he's talking about, the press is not the enemy, but it's up to us to prove it to him. We've got to do it. What Bezos is saying is that, listen, this Washington Post, we're about to make a sharp right turn. And I think we are going to see that with them. But more importantly, Bezos also gave up the game. He doesn't give a damn about the Washington Post. No. The Washington Post is his outlet to get on Trump's good side because at the end, he said that he was optimistic about Trump's second term, citing the incoming president's energy around deregulation. The Washington Post doesn't need deregulation. Amazon and their cloud services and their military contracts, they do.
Didn't you do a story one time in maybe a year or so ago, in the amount of money the government pays to Bezos, it's almost 60% of his income. Some crazy.
Yeah, 60% I believe was the number, maybe a little bit higher, but that's what people don't understand. They think, well, Bezos is rich because everybody buys everything from Amazon.
No.
He'd be rich with just that, but the money that they're getting from the Department of Defense, and most of it is just for cloud storage purposes, that is where the bulk of his money each year comes from, the federal government.
And add to that, you've got Musk, who, Musk and they aren't buddies.
Yeah.
And so Bezos is watching, wait a second, my biggest competition. Remember when they got into this fight about who was going to go to Mars first?
Right.
Bezos had, matter of fact, right here in town, Bezos had one of his launch and recovery ships that he was going to compete with Musk.
And then Richard Branson beat them both.
That's right. That's exactly right. But the point is, they hate each other.
They really
and it's got to be killing Bezos that Musk is like, he's part of the cabinet, man. I mean, Musk is his right-hand guy. He's almost the president in abstention, isn't he?
He really. Musk traveled with Trump to France this past weekend for the reopening of Notre Dame, to the point where you've got Republican senators that have done interviews that say, where the hell is J.D. Vance?
I know.
Does he even exist? And that's another thing too.
Well,
maybe a conversation for another day.
Yeah, we got to do a story on that. It's amazing.
Like J.D. Vance is MIA, and Elon Musk is taking over.
It's like they don't understand there's another election coming up in 4 years, and they better get Vance developed. Anyway, this is pathetic.
It really is.
I mean, it's just so pathetic to see these groveling billionaires that understand. They know as they're doing it. This is not the kind of guy that says, "Oh, that was yesterday. It's okay. Let's move on." He's going to punish them. He's going to punish them. Which talking about the media. The media has gone crazy. They are absolutely beside themselves about the fact that they're going to be kicked out of the press room. And now you've got, and they're being taunted. I mean, is there any question? They're absolutely being taunted by Trump. And he's saying, look, I don't need you guys. You used to be at NBC, CBS, ABC, Associated Press, CNN, Reuters. You used to be in the front row. Not anymore, baby. Not anymore. Now we're going to have social media people, maybe, in charge. And what I love what his press, I love what Caroline Leavitt's doing. She's in charge of, she's been with Trump for a long time, and she's messing with him. She said, don't believe you have some right to sit here. You don't.
Right, and look, I don't like them at all. Definitely don't like Trump, and I don't like the people they will pack the press room with, but I do agree with most parts of this. I do agree that these people do not have a right to be there, not anymore. There are no more Helen Thomases in this press room.
Her? We'll never have another Helen Thomas.
Right. A genuine journalist.
No ideology. She was amazing. She would ask questions according to what was actually happening. She didn't have some cat up on the 50th floor saying, Helen, today, here's what your talking points are. CBS, NBC, ABC, all of them have that 50th floor. What's our talking point? Corporate America. What do you want us to talk about? We'll talk about it. Helen Thomas? Hell no. She said, I won't do it.
Right. And today's press corps, if they're friendly towards the administration, they're going to ask questions like, why are you so great at everything? And then the ones that are adversarial, why are you so bad at everything?
Yeah.
It is this partisan, we're not trying to get facts. We're trying to get quick sound bites that'll go viral on Twitter. That's what they're after these days. And maybe the podcasters and the bloggers and the YouTubers, maybe they won't be any better, but if you bring those people in and you set that precedent to where these are now part of our real press pool, you get a press corps that starts to look more like real media now. Because it's not just cable and newspapers.
I don't even remember what real media looks like. I swear, I'm not making that up. I do not remember what real media looks like. They've forgotten one of the basic ideas in media is ideology is crippling. Ideology, if you rely on ideology, it's disabling, it is crippling to you as a journalist. And somewhere along the line, they packed these front 3 rows in these press corps to where ideology is all it is. I mean, there's no middle of the road. Yeah. No middle of the road.
Yeah, and I would love to see, and again, I know the Trump administration is not going to do this, but perhaps in the future, let's get a David Sirota in the front row. Mm-hmm. Let's get Ken Klippenstein. Let's get Jordan Chariton. Let's take almost anybody from The Intercept.
Right, there's some wonderful journalists out there. And even Klippenstein. Klippenstein's no ideologue.
Right.
Klippenstein's got, it's 2 sides to his sword. And if you're on the other side of it, he's going to use it.
He is.
But these numbnuts, they're not even journalists anymore. They're taking, you don't think that Rachel Maddow, for example, MSNBC, I know this happens because I used to be, 2 or 3 times a week with Ed Schultz, where that little Ken Griffin used to send memos around to all the producers saying, this is what we're going to be talking about. So all she's doing is taking marching orders from 50th floor. And so what's happened here is it's not just MSNBC and CNN doing that. These used to be legitimate news services. CBS, ABC, until Disney bought them. It used to be legitimate.
Yeah.
And now, so what's happened is they're barricading themselves to real analysis, and it's killing them. And the truth is, we got a lot of got a lot of problems the FCC is going to be looking at. It's not just this problem. It's going to be problems with foreign outlets. People don't even realize Politico. Lefties go to Politico every day. They don't even realize it's owned out of the country. It's a German conglomerate. And by the way, the guy that owns them is a dirtbag. If you go back and look at his history about his involvement in journalism, you will be amazed. But Politico is something, we don't think of that. RT's doing business. I used to have a show on RT called America's Lawyer. They're doing business here. Fortune magazine is owned by Al Jazeera. You're going to be seeing the FCC take some big steps, I think, with this administration. And I think what's going to happen is you're going to see maybe these folks are going to get more support from Trump out of the country kind of journalists than you're going to see in-country journalists.
Well, and just Al Jazeera, by the way, they do a great job with journalism still. They were one of the groups, they've done a couple, like you've been in a couple documentaries from Al Jazeera talking about the cases you've done. They've been very good on corporate abuses. I will say, to Al Jazeera's credit, they've been phenomenal with it in a way that American media outlets wouldn't even dare to cover these corporate issues.
Yeah.
And that is the problem with this. And look, I'm not saying I want to see like the Haktua girl show up in the press corps. I mean, we don't need that. We need real.
She's still around.
Yeah, she's got some issues with her little Bitcoin thing she just launched. But
how does that happen? How does this
idiocracy?
Girl, how does an idiot, a certifiable idiot, become front page news? Why? Because you got journalists like this that we're talking about.
They tracked her down and interviewed her.
Exactly.
I mean, they could, if they did this.
They
They
invented her.
Yeah.
They invented her. But the point is, journalism, I swear to God, it is dead in the United States. And NBC and CBS, ABC, Associated Press, CNN, Reuters, it is chickens come home to roost here.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we're going to get exactly what we're talking about. In a perfect world, we would have Klippenstein quality of journalists there.
But we have to, if we can set the precedent that those are the kinds of people we're going to bring in, maybe in the future we can get there. But yeah, you got to take that step and you got to tell these corporate media people, you guys are so awful, you're not even doing news. And of course, to be clear, Trump doesn't want them to do news. Trump wants people that will flatter him all day, every day.
I mean,
but
it's not like he wants them to report.
But again, if you kick the door open, even for the wrong reason, it can end up doing the right thing.
Well, we know this. His history tells us he is ready, willing, and able to punish people.
Yeah.
You remember he kicked Acosta. He kicked Acosta out of the newsroom because he got in a fight with Acosta, and Acosta was gone. And he threatened to do it to 4 more journalists.
Yeah.
So these people that aren't taking this seriously, they better pay attention to it because it's going to happen. Blue Cross Blue Shield, the anesthesia case, I think they've reversed their position. But to me, this is an unbelievable story. They tried in quiet of the night, they came up with this rule. And that is if you're going to have surgery, you can only have so much anesthesia, and then you're going to have to pay for it out of your pocket, or the doctor's going to take the loss by keeping you under anesthesia. It doesn't make any difference if you have brain surgery, if they're replacing your, hip joint, whatever it is. If you wake up, too bad. And so pick the story up.
Yeah. They basically want to make it like paid parking, where every 15 minutes you got to pay the meter to stay under anesthesia, which, by the way, is just one of the most sociopathic things I think I've ever seen.
Excuse me, isn't it 15-minute increments? I mean, they literally have it down to 15-minute increments on how they do this.
Mm-hmm. And they base it on their formulas, not the formulas of a doctor who says, listen, I've done this surgery 500 times. I know it takes me 4 hours to do it. You're only giving him 2.5 hours of anesthesia. That ain't going to cut it. I mean, he's going to wake up halfway through. And they said, well, that's your problem. That's not our issue.
Well, I hit, the case that I handled up in Alabama. Matter of fact, we just settled last year. It was against Blue Cross Blue Shield. Settled it for several $1 billion. And what ended up happening there, they were doing things like, there was a long history of people that they keep records of this. People who they believe died directly related to their failure to pay for a procedure. You have cancer, they say, I don't know if we're really going to pay for this kind of cancer, and the person ends up dying. There are lists of them, okay? That's one thing they do. The other scam is to put all these hidden costs into what you're paying every month without ever knowing what you're paying for. The other scam is to completely communicate directly with the doctor, telling the doctor, the doctor's office, not you, that they may not pay for the procedure. There's no communication with you. It goes to the doctor. They insulate themselves that way. It's the most corrupt industry in the country. I've been, as you probably you know, I've been going to trial against insurance companies my entire career.
Yeah.
It is the most corrupt, unregulated industry in this country that is stealing us blind and killing people. This is an example of it.
Well, and then, you know, people wonder, why is there so much sympathy when somebody murders a CEO for the murderer as opposed to the CEO? I mean, this is why. And look, that whole story too, which ties into this, obviously, it reminds me of a segment you and I had done, 10 years ago. And I can't remember the name of the index, but we talked about the index that shows how much people will take before you hit that period of social unrest.
Yes.
And it showed that the United States was right on the cusp.
Yeah, they were like 8 on a scale of 10.
And so I think that incident that we saw with the United Healthcare CEO, that was part of that. That individual may not be representative of the entire country, but for that person, the index hit 10. And you know, not excusing what they did by any stretch. You don't kill people.
There's no excuse. But you know what? It was a jury rebellion. The problem with the insurance company on this particular case, Blue Cross Blue Shield, their defense is there was just a misunderstanding is absurd. I mean, it's absolutely crazy and absurd. But that was their position. People didn't understand what we were really up to. Well, no, we did understand. You wrote it down. We saw the policy. Doctors talked about it. You're lying again. And so they are freaked out by it.
Yeah. I mean, there's no, the amount of sympathy, you know, that we see for the alleged shooter really shows how much just people across this country hate the health insurance industry. Yeah. And it truly is quite shocking to see that almost.
This guy was he's not really a sympathetic character. Okay, he's a
silver spoon,
wealthy silver spoon elite with Ivy League educations, had everything he wants.
Valedictorian.
He grew up in a perfect home with, you know, multi-millionaire parents who gave him everything he wanted. He is not a sympathetic character at all. But I think people are giving him a break because they hate the insurance industry so badly.
Right.
I mean, nothing you can do about that. Penny. Let's talk about the Penny result, the Penny case in New York. This case has fascinated me, frankly, because first of all, I looked at Bragg's decision to even bring the case. It was a terrible decision. It really was a terrible decision. They knew all about this person that had been, they had, 7 witnesses that came out and said, yeah, he was threatening people to kill them. He was threatening commuters to kill them. Women he was threatening. And this guy said, well, that's out of control. And the guy apparently made some kind of move towards somebody. He grabbed him, put him in a chokehold, and held him there. Now, the reason he held him there was because on the chokehold, he's on his back, right? He's on his back, and this guy's on top of him. What happens if he lets him go? Well, he's on his back, you see. And so there's a lot of factors that went into that. But Bragg, even bringing this case, was absurd. And what you saw here was, it was just a jury pardon. That's all it was, Farron, because they're tired of it in New York. You can't ride a commuter train.
Right. Look, I do not think that this man was right to do the chokehold for 6 minutes. There are other methods of restraint. If this individual was in fact, threatening the other people, that part I have not seen. I had not seen that he was issuing direct threats. What I had read was that he was yelling people, he was confronting them, but talking about, I am hungry, I need food, I need help, I need these things. Very erratic, definitely not a safe situation. But if you're going to restrain that, you can restrain the arms. You can, especially once you have the guy, if other people could maybe help. Maybe you look up and say, hey, somebody, wrap the legs.
Well, you saw them standing around, though. They were standing around. He's down on the
Exactly.
floor, and you got people standing around not willing to help at all. It's New York. It's friggin' New York.
That is kind of typical New York. Everybody looking the other way. But this man didn't have to die. And that is always, my position on things, is that this person didn't need to die. Now, to your point about the jury, that I do not disagree with at all. I do think you've got a city that sees these stories not just on the national news, but they see things like this happen all the time. They know that, okay, there's this person on this side of the street. I'm going to cross over to the other side. Man, I'm sick of that. And it could, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person was...
Last time I was up there, that's what I did, literally. And I got to tell you, the people that should be on trial are the New York State officials that have let this system get so bad that the people are afraid they have to go to work. People have to go to work. They have to move around New York. They're afraid to use the commuter system because, it's almost every week you're hearing about some thug or, individual has mental problems or some drug addict. Now, whether or not it's as pervasive as it looks in the media, it looks pretty damn pervasive in the media. And maybe that's just a big lie, but I don't think so. And so this jury rebelled. And they rebelled against Bragg because Bragg was overreaching. Even the way he presented the case, the way that it was presented, was overreaching. And the jury's going, what the hell? The city won't clean this up. Bragg, you're part of the problem. Hochul, you're part of the problem because you haven't done anything about this for a decade. And even before her. So the point is this, at some point the jury says, enough.
Well, and listen, the violent crime rate in New York has gone down. Those numbers are real. That's not opinion here. That's what's happened. But to the point of, we're looking at a city that, isn't it the wealthiest city on the planet?
Yes, it is.
They have more money than any other city in the world.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell me that they don't have the resources not to put the cops out there, because that's, we've talked plenty about how that can be dangerous too. Get some mental health professionals, more EMT type folks that are trained to recognize this and give these people like, hey, listen, come with us. We're not armed. We're not people that are going to hurt you. Let's go get you some help. Let's get them dealt with the way they need to be. Get them the help they need rather than just walking past them and saying, well, best of luck, everybody.
Yeah, fair. And this guy had a long rap sheet. Okay, may have been his mental illness, could have been his drug addiction, but he had a long rap sheet, including violence against women. Okay?
But Penny didn't know that when he did those things.
No, but Bragg did. Bragg did. When Bragg brought the case, he knew that. And he knew this had a really explosive quality about it. And the jury said, hell no, Mr. Bragg, you're overreaching. Do your job and clean this city up because it's a frigging disaster. That's, I think, what the jury did here. May see it another way.
Well, in my opinion on things like this is you're not going to clean it up with cops. They're not even trying to clean it up with cops either, but you clean it up with the trained EMTs and mental health professionals. Mm-hmm. You have the money, you have the resources to bring these kinds of people in, get them on the payrolls, get them out there to prevent incidents like this from happening. Mm-hmm. That's what I think needs to happen. Okay. Not necessarily more cops that are ready to just, do whatever. Let's get the people who are actually genuinely trying to help out there on the streets to do that.
What they're doing now is not working.
Well, they're not doing much.
Censorship Network. This story was an interesting story. It's a story we've been talking about. What is the name of the facility that it's?
Oh goodness!
It was put together. It was this Orwellian organization that started with Obama, or towards the end of Obama's regime. And then Biden, it was put on steroids. And now here's the bottom line. It was like the Animal Farm to me. That's what it reminded me of. The head piggies are making decisions for the sheep. You got Napoleon Pig making decisions about what the sheep can hear or can't hear. If you read Animal Farm, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I know you've read it. But as I was thinking about this, I think it's called the Global Engagement Center. Global,
GEC, that's right.
Global Engagement Center. and the truth is they chose to demonize whoever they chose to demonize, according to what their mind was telling them to do. No consensus. It was a knee-jerk reaction to the idea, I think this is disinformation, and we're going to do away with it. Now, I know you remember the story. I can't remember her name right now, but she came after us. She came after me specifically, and in there came after you, where she was one of the, I call her the she was basically the censorship Karen. That's the only way. She reminded me of the typical Karen, but she was the censorship Karen who was making speeches about me for doing this show, for talking about corporate America, talking about the CIA and the FBI, and she was appalled by it. But she worked for these types of folks, you see. Now, it might not have been this exact organization, but they say they're shutting down now because they're terrified. They're absolutely terrified, right?
Yeah, so the GEC, it was part of the Defense Department budget at the end of 2016. So it was right as Obama was preparing to leave and Trump was coming in office. And John McCain was one of the leaders in creating this thing, because he said, we've got to deal with the disinformation coming from other countries. Apparently that was such a huge deal because they bought $170,000 in Facebook ads. So let's create a new department in the federal government that deals with propaganda. Because it is a two-way street, right? They weren't just tracking propaganda coming into this country or propaganda. Their job is also to do the propaganda in other countries.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I thought where you were going with it, Farron, is it comes into the country, and then whoever reports on it could be me and you. Then we are targeted because we're, I guess, in the chain of disinformation. But here's the point. Who are these numbnuts making this decision? Who decides? The American public can't hear that. So I'm going to call Facebook and tell Facebook, throttle this back. Don't allow this information to get out there. And of course, Facebook, completely cooperative. Instagram, completely cooperative. Throttle it back. We're making the decision that this is disinformation. And American public is so stupid. The American public is so stupid, we have to make a decision for them. So it is classic Animal House, Napoleon Pig versus the sheep. And they were Napoleon Pig.
Well, in their defense, the American public as a whole is very stupid. When you put people together, we become dumb. But, it is one of those things. The government cannot be involved in this. I don't care where you fall on the political spectrum. Anytime you have a group of bureaucrats deciding what can or cannot be said, regardless of where it originated from, that's when you hit that. You're not just hitting the slippery slope, you are sliding down it at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Because, and God, it drives me crazy that the Democrats are the ones who don't seem to understand this. You're not going to be in power forever. And when the other side gets it, guess what suddenly becomes disinformation?
Can I tell you, if you poll 10 Democrats and you ask them, is this okay? Well, of course it's okay. It's disinformation. Who the hell decides it's disinformation? Napoleon Pig? Napoleon Pig says, we can't let the American public hear that. These people are autocrats. I mean, we've become a nation of letting autocrats do whatever the hell they want to do.
I mean, we have a First Amendment to protect us from this.
But how has this become? You're Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. You know that. Where is it that the Democrats latched onto this? Why did they latch? Was it the Russia thing?
That played a huge role in it.
Yeah,
yes.
Where every night MSNBC's talk about Russia's under your bed, Russia's in your closet. Don't use your toothbrush because Russia has spit on your toothbrush. It's crazy shit like that.
Well, and even the Mueller report said, hey, Russia had disinformation. They had disinformation kind of centers, but a lot of other countries have them too.
Of course.
And basically through this GEC, we did as well, and we do it in other countries. So it is one of those things. We have to put our foot down and say that this government, telling us what we can and cannot see, telling us
Right.
what we can and cannot read, because the same people okay with the GEC are the same people speaking out about the book bans.
Right.
How
Oh.
dare you tell me what I can and cannot read?
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, no, you can't have it both ways.
Because Napoleon Pig is making these kinds of decisions. And if you allow Napoleon Pig, the autocrat that works for government, that worked for Obama, worked for McCain, worked for Biden, that put all this in place, if you allow that to happen, this slippery slope that you're talking about becomes tragic.
especially considering what's coming up.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, the critics, where it comes to, I don't even know, what am I going to call it? The new Democratic leadership is the same as the old Democratic leadership. And the critics are saying, what the hell? You have useless leadership that put the Dems where they are today. You were responsible for that, Schumer. You were responsible for that, Pelosi. And now, like a bunch of lemmings, all the Democrat rank and file says, yeah, we're going to put him in charge again. What is that about? Why is it the Democrats are so incapable of saying, you know, bye Hillary Clinton, goodbye Nancy Pelosi, goodbye Schumer, let's have some new blood in here. Why are they incapable? It's almost like they're dependent on daddy kind of mentality. You're a Democrat. I know you don't think like that, but I'll tell you, if I'm to sum it up, that's the way it looks to me.
Top fundraisers. That's what they do.
Okay.
That's
okay,
what
okay.
Schumer is in the Senate. That's what Pelosi
Okay.
is in the House. We're the people that bring in the money.
Well, now talk about that a little. I won't go into a lot of detail.
Yeah.
In other words, they hold power, according to your theory, because they bring in so much money that you don't want to offend Nancy Pelosi or Schumer because you might not have enough money for your race. And in that, you let them destroy the whole frigging political party.
Yeah.
Because that's what they've done.
Yeah, so what happens is that, you know, obviously Pelosi, Schumer have been there for decades. And over time, you build these relationships, not with your constituents, with the donors. You get to know all the lobbyists. You get to know everybody that has a checkbook. So whenever the party is in trouble, hey, we got an election, we're running $100 million behind the Republicans. Nancy, Chuck, please make your phone calls. And they do. They make their phone calls. They get the money.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, the same thing.
Used to be Harry Reid was
Right.
the go-to guy, right?
He really was, and that's
Yeah,
why they kept
yeah,
him so
yeah,
long.
yeah.
And so they have to keep these people in leadership, not because they're good leaders, but because they're money people.
Good
When
fundraising.
they don't even realize that, listen, they're only calling Democratic donors.
Mm-hmm.
Any idiot that's a Democrat in Congress could make the same phone call and have probably the same results. You could have Elizabeth Warren make the phone calls, but she wouldn't because she has standards.
Okay, so that is, I believe you're right. I believe that really is inside baseball right there. But let's go inside baseball. And I still ask the question, why is it that the Democratic Party is so willing to operate in this system, autocracy, where you have the people making decisions for you? And you know they're the wrong decisions because you just lived through it. You just saw the beat down election that just took place. And you still say, yeah, these are our people. They made really good decisions. What the hell? It's like lemmings going off a cliff. And I tell you what, I know that Republicans are doing the same thing, but it seems like laser focused problems for the Democrats.
I mean, it really is, because you bring up the best point here. We just got our butts kicked. There is no way to sugarcoat that. There is no way to pretend that November was awesome for the Democratic Party. The public openly rejected us and embraced the convicted felon instead of you. You have to look at yourself and realize, where all did we go wrong? And it terrifies me that they aren't doing any of that. Let's put the same people back in charge. Let's keep the same people in charge of the DNC, although I do think they're actually going to get rid of Harrison, which is great because he has been a disaster.
Oh, total.
His only qualification was that he ran against Lindsey Graham, got his ass kicked, but he raised a lot of money.
Yeah.
That is what it was.
Farron, you are so you are the best voice the Democratic Party could have. I mean, not to say you don't go after them when you go after them, but you're the best voice.
They need to be smacked around right now.
So what you deal with all these folks that are out there. How are they justifying this? I mean, what are they saying? This is a great idea. I mean, are the Sam Cedars and Are those folks like that saying, are David Pakman types saying, wow, this is a great idea?
No, absolutely not. I haven't seen anybody, including folks online, that think this is a smart decision.
Okay.
So all of these folks out there understand, yeah, we're in this party boat, and the boat is sinking, and they say, you know what? Let's hit the rock again because maybe the rock will plug the hole. No, it's going to rip it open even further, we're all going down.
Is it in the Democrats' DNA? Is it just so in the Democrats' DNA that they have to operate with a strong mama or strong daddy that tells them what to do? Is that just part of their DNA?
It really is. It's the hero mentality.
Okay, talk about that a little bit.
We need the savior.
Okay.
We've got to have a Superman figure show up and save the day. And right now, we're willing to slap that cape on any elderly person that calls themselves a Democrat. You know, Chuck Schumer is not your Superman. Nancy Pelosi is not Batman. They're not going to save you in your moment of need.
And when you say that, I even think to me, it's broader than that. Are they so insulated that they believe that they have everything in common with Hollywood celebrity, that that's who they've become, or that they are in such a blue bubble with the media that they're so separated from reality that you'll never bring them back? You understand what there is that Hollywood celebrity bubble who would not give them the time of day. Again, I've said this again. These are people who they fly around in jets. They have chauffeurs driving them around. They have gold toilets, for God's sakes. But the Dems say, oh, well, we want to hear them. We're part of them. They're us. They don't give a damn about you, brother. And so, but they become insulated to the reality that whatever the shots they're calling are way, way off nowadays.
Yeah, and I do think they're definitely insulated. I mean, have they lost it forever? Hopefully not. I mean, I hope that these young leaders in the Democratic Party, which in the House, you do have the young leaders that are now challenging these leadership positions, saying, hold up, you're not going to be ordained to be the minority leader. Maybe I want a shot at it. Maybe I want to be the or the minority chair of this committee. So in the House, we're seeing a little bit of pushback. In the Senate, there's none at all.
Farron, what do you think? I mean, this seems like a part of this discussion, but what do you think of the Trump, for example, the Trump appointees have nothing to do with the blue bubble? I mean, they just don't. They're not Washington insiders. They're new faces. Is he consciously doing that? Is he trying to say, look, let me contrast myself with the Democrats who can't let go? They can't say no to Hillary Clinton, who, oh, by the way, is talking about running for president again. Or they can't say no to Pelosi or Schumer. And over here, you've got Trump trying to make appointments that, they don't have anything to do with the DC bubble or the media bubble or the Hollywood bubble. Nothing.
Well, a lot of them, too. I mean, he's got, a dozen billionaires that he's appointing?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
he and the rest of them are all pretty much millionaires to some degree, too. So he's not doing a good job of pretending to be a populist anymore with a lot of these picks. But are they outsiders? Sure. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard did, she was in Congress, obviously. Kash Patel did serve in his previous administration, so they're not all outsiders. But they're people who like to say that they are outsiders.
My whole point is I think it contrasts what the Dems can't seem to let go of, mommy and daddy. I got to have mommy and daddy. And if I don't have mommy and daddy, we can't function as a party.
Speaking of mommy and daddy, though, I do have to bring up this because, Pete Hegseth's mother has been calling senators and telling them to support her son. And J.D. Vance's mom shows up at a city council meeting last week in Middletown, Ohio, tiny town, shows up at the city council meeting and she says, you've got to honor my son. This is our hometown. You've got to honor my son.
Mommy did that?
Mommy did it for J.D. Vance. Mommy's doing it for Pete Hegseth.
Okay.
Oh, Elon Musk's mommy is going on Fox News every other day talking about what a special little boy he is.
Well,
so I do, yes, I think the Democrats want the mommy-daddy figure, but right now it's the Republicans running to literally their
running
mommies.
to mommy-daddy. But there is that mommy-daddy figure. That's the contrast I was trying to make.
I agree. I just had to point those out because those are so funny.
Those are great stories. Farron Cousins, thank you for joining me, okay?
Thank you.
That's all the time we have, but all these segments are going to be posted right here on this channel in coming weeks, so make sure you subscribe. I'm Mike Papantonio, and this has been America's Lawyer, where we tell you stories every week that corporate media won't tell you because their advertisers don't let them. They'd lose advertising dollars if they did, or their tribal politics don't allow for it. You know, they're too Democrat, they're too Republican, and if they color outside that line, they're going to get in trouble. Well, as you can tell, we're not beholden to corporations or political parties, really. We'll see you next time.
That it had helped dirty money flow through its branches around the world, including at least 800...
Plaintiffs allege that the defendants provided money and medical goods to terrorist groups Hezbollah and Jaish al-Mahdi.
This is a well-organized business for these individuals that carry out these attacks. Terrorism is a business, and they run it like a business.
They knew about what was going on for a decade. They absolutely, no question about it, knew that HSBC was washing money. They had every reason to understand it was for terrorism and it was for drug cartels. Took no action whatsoever.
These banks are involved. Their accounts are connected, and they're using them to mask the transactions. The more complicated they can make the transactions, the more distance they can put between the bad guys and the seemingly legitimate purpose of these funds.
They pay $1.9 billion, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what they've made, and nobody goes to prison. These CEOs, these bankers that made this decision, they're safe at home. They know what they've done. It's resulted in the death of Americans, contractors and soldiers, not just hundreds, but thousands. And we look the other way because they don't look like criminals. The die is cast. The people that are responsible are on Wall Street.
And they don't look like criminals. It's almost a suspension of disbelief. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, is this real? Do they really get away with this? Yeah, they do.